I'm going to start this off with some brutal honesty. I wasn't supposed to go on this trip. I was planning to do the England trip, but the spots filled up too quickly, so this trip was recommended to me by some representatives along with the Italy trip. I'd already been to Italy, so I signed up for this one since I really wanted to free up space for a spare next year. It must have been fate or something, because I had the time of my life on this trip, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I learned so many new things and grew so much as a person. It's incredible. Through my personal experiences, reading about the characters in the novels, and visiting places in America, I learned that grades don't represent my intelligence, voices are impactful, and that it is always best to be yourself. Towards the end of the trip is when I learnt my grades aren't as important as we're made to believe. We visited a lot of memorials in Washington, D.C. We saw the Lincoln Memorial, the World War II Memorial, the Vietnam War Memorial, the Holocaust Memorial Museum, among others. Becca was an incredible tour guide, and I learnt a lot from her about Washington and the USA's history. In case anyone was wondering, her favorite war was the Civil War, and her favorite genocide was the Holocaust. One incredible thing I held onto from her tour was the story of the young architect who designed the Vietnam War Memorial. She designed the memorial for her final assignment and submitted her work to a contest, which she ended up winning. However, her professor also submitted a design, and since she beat him for the prize, he gave her a B-. The moral of the story is, don't let what others think bring you down. I was also able to take away the idea that your grades don't define your intelligence. The young architect received a B- on a design for a memorial that hundreds of people visit every day. That shows her intellect. I'm always so caught up in my grades being as high as possible that I kill myself when it's lower than my goal. Sure, grades get you into university, but then what? Grades matter for 1/5 of your life. They're not worth the tears they create.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
All societal movements throughout history have had strong, impactful voices behind them. When we went to the African American History Museum, we saw the impact Martin Luther King Jr. and Muhammad Ali had and still have on the Black community, and how positive their messages were. In the Holocaust Memorial Museum, we see how Adolf Hitler's voice controlled the National Socialists and all of Germany. Although his intentions were less than just, we can recognize how his ambition and passion are what gave him his success. Star is another example of a strong voice behind a movement, Justice for Khalil. Although she struggles in the beginning to find her voice, she eventually finds it, and it's empowering. Since she didn't speak for Natasha, she felt the need to speak for Khalil. If you're passionate about something and care enough to speak up about it, people will listen. They may not agree, or they may be proud of you. You're speaking loudly, and that will make a difference. The most important thing I've learned is that it's always best to be yourself. I've always been intimidated by meeting new people and making new friends. After the fear I endured before my trip last year, the one about not making friends, I pushed myself to be more social this year when traveling. The results were astonishing. Everyone I met was incredibly kind and welcoming, and not once did I feel alone. I used to hold back my personality when introducing myself because I always believed I was a bit too much, but it's not fun to do that. This trip I was in full swing and you were all super accepting. I feel like I can relate this to Vivian from Orphan Train. She lost her family and was forced to spend time with strangers. However, I do believe my time was much more enjoyable than hers. She kept herself hidden since that's what she was told would help her gain respect from families. She kept quiet with the Bryans, the Groats, and even the Nielsen's. I didn't feel the need to stay quiet on this trip, and I thank all of you for that. I learned that although people may seem intimidating at first glance, people will seldom judge you for your habits and personality, and are super kind once you get to know them, just like the Nielsen's. And just like the Teen Center, this trip was a safe place for growth and development.
It's a place to not only grow, but to develop.
This trip really made my summer. There's nothing I would do to change it, except maybe make the weather cooler. Over the last 2 weeks, I learned that my grades don't define who I am. Passion drives change, and friendships will only blossom if the seeds are planted.